welcome everybody. I'm Jeff Cox, the Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Affairs. My office has responsibility for program review, and I want to thank Andre Grota in particular. Andre is the staff person who manages program review, manages all these visits, all of the internal review processes, manages the work of the campus level committee, does just a fabulous job. And we just saw this morning the poster show he helped get organized, which was really quite amazing. So thank you, Andre. This is an open forum. It is open to all members of the university community. We do have obviously representatives from the various departments. We also have members of the committee, the Academic Review and Planning Advisory Committee, which is the campus level program review committee, who are here to hear what you have to say. We're here today with a very distinguished group of external visitors. As you, I assume, all know, this meeting, or this series of meetings over this end of this week, is part of the revised version of program review, in which, in addition to looking at individual units, we invite academic leaders from around the country to come in and look at those units as a group. And we've, in this group, been looking at physical sciences, mathematics units and institutes. It's been a very rich conversation all year. It's been a very good day and a half so far. And this is your opportunity to raise issues or questions with our visitors. They may want to pose questions back to you, but it's just an open forum for the university to raise anything that they think that our external visitors should know about. I'm just going to tell you who they are. I'm not going to go into long introductions, instead open up the floor, but we have Alvin Crumblis from Duke University, Winston Coe from the University of California, Davis, Catherine Newton from Syracuse University, and Kumbal Subbaswamy from the University of Kentucky. And we're very pleased to have them here. They've been great visitors. They clearly did an enormous amount of work before coming here, and we really appreciate them giving their time, particularly at this time of the year, which is inconvenient for everybody, but is kind of the only time we can do it to kind of wrap up a review cycle. So with that said, I'll just open the floor to a first question. Paul.
So you had a chance to see these 8 departments the last couple of days, or day and a half so far. Just looking for some of your reactions of the ways we're working together, ways we might be working together better, how we're organized, and maybe changes in how that organization might help us improve.
Actually, we'd like to also hear from the faculty to see that how you yourself working as a unit. You have 8 programs, and I know some of the programs like yours is very distinguished, and also helped greatly by the various institutes. And you probably have more affiliation with the institutes, probably with other people. So the faculty, I wonder how you identify yourself as a unit, as a place on campus that you sort of collaborate and trying to forward the same goal or research and so forth. So I think this committee here is more to listen, right, than to articulate, what we will write in the report. Okay.
Well, I'll pick up on that.
Okay.
One of the things we emphasized in our last strategic plan 10 years ago was academic neighborhoods. To break this big university down into small neighborhoods where students could interact, faculty could interact. I am concerned that because of the way we're growing, we're completely balkanized. We're all in 5, 6, 8 different locations, and you saw some of them yesterday. I'm not sure that's good. I think it's going counter to the academic neighborhood.
Other comments on?
Well, to that point, I guess I'd like to just pursue that a little bit and ask, what are the neighborhoods that are, in one way or another, constituted as structures or constituted as working groups of faculty, an even rarer and more precious resource. What are those neighborhoods that must not be lost? So that's one question. What must not be lost is one of my most important questions for you. And then the second thing that derives from your question is what can be added to that by way of neighborhoods?
One of the best examples of a student neighborhood, I think, is the honors program. And another is the residential academic program, what we used to call dorms. But I think those are nice. But then on the graduate education side, institutes and centers, small groups that congregate smaller numbers of faculty, where you bring in people from different departments that have something to say to each other.
Are any of the new initiatives neighborhoods under evolution, emerging neighborhoods, or recognitions of cross-collaborative efforts? Or are there other things that you would forecast in addition to these?
Well, so one part of that is that the university has had very successful residential academic programs. There are currently, I believe, 6. The long-range planning for the campus says there will be 30. That's just taking the projected student body and dividing it by 200. But so, I mean, I think one of the questions confronting the campus is, can we actually staff and manage that many residential academic programs?
So the comment I have on that is the ones that exist have been driven by programmatic issues in various disciplines. Wanted to create residential programs, Farron and Sewell, and the honors residential program, and there's one in the honors in engineering now, and several, and a bunch of others actually around the campus. But they're primarily the courses that are taught by instructors in those units. And so it's vastly expanding that's going to vastly increase the number of instructors rather than tenure track faculty on the campus. And so if we're going to go down that route, it needs to be done very programmatically, academically driven, as opposed to let's just divide up the student body by 30.
Bob, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to offer a comment as one of the founders of the environmental residential academic program. We started out in Williams Village, which is considered by the students to be the last to fill because it's a high rise and it's the farthest away from campus. And then we moved onto the main campus next to the physics building in the heart of the campus. It changed the character of that RAP a great deal. And we also learned that that the students were more motivated, and we attributed this to the fact that the people who didn't get around to applying to go to school until the last minute were the ones that ended up in the poorest dorm. And by getting a shot at the students who thought ahead and cared about what they were going to do next fall was important in that. That will take care of itself, I believe, in part because students are willing to pay more and can afford to pay more, from out of state at least. They're already paying a small fortune for out-of-state tuition. We do that for very crass and necessary reasons because we live in a state that is libertarian in tax, and you've already had your ears full, I'm sure, of the economic problems we have in this state. I see that as the overwhelming problem that will hurt us in infrastructure. It will hurt us, and we think we've built a great university. We think there are objective measures of that, and citations per paper, numbers of papers per faculty, a whole bunch of other things, competitive grants won, and the like. But I'm most concerned about the continued concerns about tax structure not being supportive of its principal state university and the problems that go along with that. I think infrastructure is going to hurt us over the long term in because we also have to grow in order to afford to stay in business. And that's not bad in my opinion. I've been here 35 years. I've served as an elected regent of the university for 12 years. I've seen a lot of changes. Most of them have been, in my opinion, very good until the last couple of years. So I'm worried that we'll lose this momentum. We need a bigger graduate program, in my opinion. We are crippled by the fact that we're locked in the number of square feet we can put into the so-called main campus, which I think eventually will be called the West Campus, and there'll be an East Campus. And we're dumbbell-shaped. We're separated by a mile. We don't have an easy way to get large numbers of students back and forth, let alone faculty to teach. If we decided to keep all the teaching on the main campus, we really can't do that either. So those are the principal problems that I see for the university. But I'm really also proud of my colleagues who have made it the university that it is.
Thank you. So Bob's put a couple things on the table, one of which would be, so we need more space in terms of land space. The most land we've got is on East Campus. That's largely where we can put new buildings. We pride ourselves on academic neighborhoods, on interdisciplinary work that requires contiguity. What do we think about growing East Campus, and how should it be developed?
I have a question also. I've sort of picked up some anxiety in chemistry that with the biochemistry program moved to East Campus, that the chemistry department is pretty uneasy. And I'd like to hear, people's view on this, especially chemistry, of course.
So I'm associate chair of chemistry. Our chair had to be in Denver today, so I'm here representing chemistry and biochemistry. I think once the university decided to build the East Campus, and to build, they obviously, a number of things were started there earlier, much earlier, LASP and CASA and others. But I think once they made the move of building biotech there, which is going to house, Tom Check tells us, 600 people, split our department roughly 40-60, about 40% of our department is going to be in that building on the East Campus. That I hope the university has made a commitment to really build an East Campus and to bring chemistry and biochemistry back together. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of if we think about the university growing, not holding it at 30,000 students, it's about our only choice. And you have to build a critical mass. As Tom Check, who's the head of the biotech initiative, says, he doesn't want to be manning an outpost. And it can't happen too fast. I think one of the things that will happen is faculty will be unhappy. They will find other places to go. Numerous problems. The transportation is really a huge issue. It's very expensive. People have talked about cable cars and subways and monorails and what?
Horizontal ski lifts.
Yeah, ski lifts. But the big thing too is students. We really need to move students back and forth. I hope that the two campuses wouldn't be just isolated units that cover certain majors, but that students would be able to move and faculty would be able to move back and forth between the two campuses. I think teaching is an important part. Undergraduate teaching in our department, we integrate graduate students, undergraduates, and the faculty and staff all in all aspects of our department. And having some teaching up here and research down there is not a great model. I would like to see the East Campus develop as a complete campus, not every department represented, but have the teaching of undergraduates and graduates and research be present there for a particular unit.
Thank you. I trust the faculty does know there's a task force, there's a series of task forces working on a new 10-year master plan It is up on the administration website. It is available for comment. There is a task force on East Campus. You chaired it. And so I'm sure that they'd love to hear from faculty. Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I'll talk with you and share my point of view with you afterwards. I'm Nils Halverson from the APS department. My lab is on East Campus. I teach on the main campus. I split my time between the two. And I would love to see the East Campus become a viable academic neighborhood. But I can say that right now, my office window looks out over the last parking lot and is now being blocked. My view of the mountains being blocked by the new biotech building, unfortunately. But it really feels a lot more like an industrial office park out there right now. There are no pedestrians out there. And in fact, there's really no walking. So there's not a lot of community out there in terms of interaction. And I think it's an incredibly valuable resource out there, and we need to smartly develop it so that it can become as collegial and neighborhood-like as the main campus is.
Other opinions on East Campus?
Can I ask a question along, since really the common theme for all the 8 units was space or lack thereof, and growing pain is a good thing. I mean, I think that you're victims of your own success, as many of the reports do speak to it. So there are certain, it seems to me, realities here. The window of time that we're supposed to look at is, according to the documents you sent us, Jeffrey, so 7 years. Okay. So in that 7-year window, the likelihood that 10 more buildings will be built on the East Campus, I think is very low, 0. Thank you. I didn't want to say that, but it is 0. So it is very clear that there is a bridging process here. You can imagine a campus in 2030 which may look very different from what it's going to look like over the next 5 or 6 years. And it seems to me that there has to be some campus-wide thinking along lines of how do you bring that about, and there may be some musical chairs to play 10 years down the road or something like that. And so is it possible to think about neighborhoods in a slightly different way? So I'm going to ask you this question. The traditional 1875, when you were founded, model has been disciplinary neighborhoods. There's a physics department building, there's a chemistry department, chemistry and biochemistry probably wasn't added back then, but chemistry building and so forth. And those are really real neighborhoods, and for Gila especially, or if you take some of the other centers, they're real clear, lively, active neighborhoods. There's no question about that. But in fact, is there a instrumentation neighborhood? Is there a space and planetary neighborhood? Is there, those kinds of transitions perhaps that you might think about? And I understand very much that the undergraduate teaching component is a really big issue. Frankly, certain things should also be put in perspective. I think a lot of people who would come here, first of all, would look at your beautiful campus and be jealous of a lot of other things, but also say what you're complaining about, a 1 mile separation between activities. I think so. There is a matter of that perspective as well. I mean, not to in any way underplay the importance of proximity to a lot of interactions and so forth. But every university that was established in the 1860s to 70s, which is most of the large public universities in this country, are going through this growing pain right now, and not one of them has all the resources to suddenly build another campus. So I would be curious to hear if you folks have thought or started thinking about what that transition might look like and help shape it, because I've heard certain ideas, like geological sciences perhaps in one of the buildings over there, because there is already CASA and LASP over there and so forth, geo and earth sciences. Is the task force considering those kinds of things, or is the time now for those kind of ideas to be expressed?
Yeah, I'll just address that. Is this on?
Yes.
I'm Jim White. I'm the director of the Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research, and I'm not going through program review. I'm here to learn from these folks what worked and what didn't work in program review, and also we have obviously a lot of ties with the units in the room here. I was the chair of the East Campus Vision Task Force, and what you're saying was exactly the kind of issues that we discussed. We would like to see the East Campus develop as a community of larger than disciplinary neighborhoods. Geosciences / environmental sciences was one of those neighborhoods. Aerospace was one. Energy was one. Life sciences, as anchored by the current biotechnology building, was one. But the idea was we wouldn't build any building that was for one department. We would build all buildings as community buildings and try to keep the culture of interdisciplinarity and cross-disciplinarity I think has served us so well alive and kicking as the East Campus develops. There are, in my opinion, two issues that I think all of you ought to consider, and I think I would love for you guys to think about this. How do we implement that? We have a vision document. It's up on the web. It states all of these things. And at the end of it, we put in there a statement that how this actually gets administrated is very important. All of these plans could be taken over by our facilities management group and put into place without academic input into the future. That has happened in the past. And I think that it's very important for this group and for the review teams that look at this group to think about the implementation. It's going to take, you're right, it's going to take 10 years before we get to the point where there are real communities and real neighborhoods out there. We've got to do more than just produce vision documents. We have to produce implementation documents that get us from today to 10 years from now. Because I'm confident in 10 years from now, we'll have more of a neighborhood out there. You won't feel, I'm on East Campus too, you won't feel as isolated as you are now. But I mean, if you look at pictures of this campus when it was Old Main and maybe Hale Sciences, it was pretty isolated looking. So there's, we've gone through these periods of, gosh, those folks in the university are so far away and they're so isolated, to now we seem like we're part of town. We are part of town. So we have to consider that. We've got to go through that. But I strongly, again, urge to think about the implementation, because that is really critical. And I don't know that we have done that. I don't know that we've done that well, and I don't know that we even will do that.
Now, implementation is important, but your vision document have the buy-in of the faculty here. You see, this is what I'm trying to, as an external people, I'm trying to get some feeling of the community, and I'd like to see whether the community have a buy-in of the vision.
Yeah, and I would like to hear too. I think that one of the things that doesn't work as well as it could here is that when it comes to campus planning, facilities planning, there has been too much of a separation between the academic side of the campus and the administrative side of the campus. And that is changing. I think we have the leaders in place now to see that change. But what you're pointing out is a very good point. We went through this whole vision process, and many people in this room probably don't even know that exists, or didn't even know that existed. And we did our best to go out and talk to all the chairs and talk to everybody else who was involved. But it's not something that we do as well as we should and as well as we could.
Jim, you mentioned the life sciences. Was that a faculty-based conversation that reached out to some of the units in this room as well?
I don't know the answer to that question, Catherine. The life sciences, I'll throw that out to this group.
Just bridging to an earlier point that was made about chemistry.
Yes. We've had many discussions about chemistry, and I think that this is really symptomatic of where we need more academic input into the transitioning process. We took advantage of the biotechnology momentum that we had going in the initiative and in the faculty that were very active. But I think that we do need to think more seriously then about what are the other parts of these departments. And there will be departments that are split up for some period of time. I mean, it's physically, I think that's just going to happen. But we need to think as far forward as we can so that those kind of splits are either planned and maybe not welcomed by the faculty, but at least anticipated, or planned for some period of time saying, look, we're seriously not going to keep you separated for more than X years or whatever, and then stick to that.
You bet.
Jerry, then Mike.
Given the modern communications technologies, where you think your lab and where your office is should matter less. The hard part is to know who is in your community. And because the people who might have similar interests, similar methods, you don't know because you don't meet them. When I was in university administration, I tried an experiment. I organized a modeling and simulation symposium for the campus on a Saturday. So many people signed up from so many places that we had to have parallel sessions. So there are communities like that. They just don't know one another. So perhaps it's the intellectual community more than the spatial community we should strive for.
Our new research interest search tools designed for people to find each other, which will be launched this summer, I believe. Mike? Yeah.
So I'm Mike Shull from Astrophysical Planetary Science. We've been split for 30 years, and we're resigned to most of it because our big space hardware labs at CASA and LASP are already out there, and some of you already toured it. So we've lived with it, and Niels is in my department. We live with it by having 2 offices for our faculty, and the transportation back and forth is how it works. It doesn't work perfectly, but I think we're just going to have to live with it because the large amounts of space hardware labs have to be separate. How that treats the undergrads and grad students, I think, is where we should think hard. Right now, I guess they get by with bicycles, and there's a shuttle bus that they can take, or they walk, and it's a mile. We drove out there. It wasn't too bad. But I think, I guess for Jim, it's an existence proof that it can be done. And the other point I want to make is I think there are anchors that are going to stay on the main campus. Physics, astrophysics, and GILA, I don't think are moving. There's been too much investment. So we won't go out there. But the other departments you mentioned, I think, could, and that will open up space on the main campus, which we desperately need.
That opportunity, that's an opportunity.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that opportunity.
That also ought to be planned well.
Or spent three times, Michael. Sorry, the space that's being vacated by the biochemists has already been spent 3 times.
So I'd say this campus is excellent at tactical decisions, entrepreneurial and opportunistic decisions on moving in certain directions and rather rapidly, actually, investing in new things. And what I think we're need more work on is strategic decisions and comprehensive decisions where we're looking at an entire science campus or much more global decisions made early on of what we want to do with that East Campus. It seems to be driven a good fraction of it by, from my perusing, actually looking pretty carefully at some of parts of the document, the master plan. There's a lot of things in it that sound like it came out of facilities management type decisions rather than academic programmatic decisions.
I've heard a lot of talk about space and East Campus, and I'd like to raise another issue, and that is I think the university and the appropriate departments have done well in terms of interacting with institutes, and the institutes produce a really nice interface between the university and the federal labs that are here, and I think from what I can see, it really works well. Related to that is if you have faculty in the institutes or in departments that have spin-off ideas, that is translational science. I haven't heard anything about what kind of support the university or department or institutes have for those faculty who then take their discoveries and either license them to small companies in the area or want to take that discovery and generate a startup company on their own. Is that something that is promoted here, or is that something that there are administrative barriers to? That's something I haven't heard anything about.
It's not part of the main culture.
I'll speak to that since I have been a serial entrepreneur in my 35 years here. The university, I think, like most state universities, really would like to see that happen. I'm not sure that your faculty colleagues would always think it's a good idea because some regard it as distracting, some regard it as prostituting yourself. I've heard all of these things before. They prefer to think in terms of fundamental science instead of translational science. But we've been successful in some respects. A company I formed in 1984, together with a faculty colleague here, was acquired in 1996 by Ionics and then by General Electric. It's still a very successful company. It provides employment for 160 people, and so we can, I think, point to that with pride. It's provided employment for a lot of our graduates, and then we went ahead after we sold that company to form a company in a different area called Active Dry. It's been in existence for 8 years, making vaccines that are inhalable rather than injectable, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with a $20 million grant. And the university was very supportive in encouraging me to take half-time status, which I have for several years, so that I could help develop and do benchtop to bedside kinds of translational research. So it varies greatly. I don't think everybody in the room would feel as comfortable as I have with being involved in industry. They may not think that's an appropriate activity for a faculty member, but it works for some of us. And you can point to 10 or 12 other examples of companies like that.
Does the university have a technology transfer office?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very active.
And is there
It's at the system level.
is there a public documents with respect to licensing agreements and who owns what, and money coming back to the institute and the department and to the PI?
I don't know that that's on any website or anything, but it's in the public domain, and so it's known, and it's certainly handled by the people in the university who are attorneys who want to make sure that there is no conflict of interest, and you have to sign statements every year about what your relationships are with various people, how much you consult, how much time you're devoting to this, and the like.
Does the university have incubator facilities to enhance the interface between startup companies and faculty research?
Not that I am aware of. At one time we thought about doing this in a serious way. Then there was the Boulder Technology Incubator, which was created among townspeople, not as part of the university. The university does provide some support to people who counsel faculty members who want to form companies, and that's called BIC. I've forgotten what it stands for. Maybe some of you know. So it's the industrial parks that have been created across the country by state universities have not, from my knowledge, been as successful as was originally hoped back in the 70s and 80s when there was a big spate of building those. And I think that universities aren't very good landlords.
Sure.
And so
there are ways to build that sort of interface without building a park, for example. Yeah. I guess one thing that has struck me is that CU is a state university, but one which needs to start thinking more like a private university. With the level of state support you have, I think that's an important strategy change.
Lou, did you want to?
Oh, I was going to just say that there is a good infrastructure, actually. They're underfunded, I think, the technology transfer people, but they give lots of advice to how to get patents, how to set up licenses and licensing companies, even when there's no physical company involved. We have very good success with them in the department. They're underfunded, and there used to be seed money to help people get started and stuff, and that's, I think, sort of dried up.
I think there's a difference between being there and have a tech transfer office that is proactive.
Yeah. They're proactive in the sense that they come by departments and they talk with chairs and say, what's going on, and tell me about this research. And I've been very pleased with our relationships with them.
Good.
And just to add on to that, it has part of the 2030 vision planning, we did emphasize quite a bit the relationship between the university and nearby industries and tech transfer and things like that. So that definitely is in the vision plan, and there are documents that describe at least what the vision would be. I don't, Jeff, you may be able to say more about where that would go, but it was certainly emphasized in the discussions that we were having.
Well, yes, again, we have lots of visions, and then implementation tends to be the problem. A lot of it is staffing. I mean, we run with such smaller administrative staffs than most of our peers at the departmental level, but also in central administration.
Good. I'd like to throw another question out to the audience here. There's no question but that one of the greatest strengths of CU physical sciences and beyond perhaps are these partnerships with federal labs and then subsequent centers that have come out of that type of work, for instance. From, obviously our view is a very superficial view, so you have to forgive these perceptions and impressions that we have, but I want to try to see if I can gather some more information from that. We've seen a range, there are, I think, a range of such arrangements where there are cooperative agreements, as in GILA and CIRRUS, and then we also have others that are really, truly university centers and institutes. And there are different levels of identity in that walking through physics, you don't know what is GILA, what is physics. It seems like they're so fully integrated that no one seems to care about those distinctions. It's a good thing, at least that's my impression. I'm a physicist, so forgive me. On the other hand, for the university centers, there seems to be more of a identity with the center versus department, center first, department next. That's the impression one has. I'm going to, since LASP was not on this list, I'll throw LASP out there. An impression that your LASP first, physics second, or APS second, or your LASP first and I don't know, kind of ATOC next or something like that. Is there, again, in the evolution of things, I'm going to sort of throw this question, I don't know if there are surely there are LASP fellows and others over here, so that's okay. I'm leaving tomorrow, so it doesn't matter. Is there in this evolution process a time to carefully look at those identities, affiliations, especially as it does not pertain to cooperative arrangements, and perhaps either realign or sort of try to reintegrate to some extent. I picked this up more from graduate students and postdocs than from the faculty themselves. So the question of how you project yourself perhaps to graduate students, postdocs, and visitors may be something to think about. So any takers? Thank you, Mike.
Just so everyone knows, LASP is an institute. It's affiliated with 4 or 5 departments, one of which is mine, APS, and we have 6 faculty members in there. And I think you're right, they do identify first with the institute because that's where their research home is, in a way that perhaps GILA doesn't. In terms of reorganizing, this is at the heart of our strategic internal plan, and our external review team picked up on it. I think we're going to have to sort this out. In particular, the Planetary Science and Space Physics program, which covers multiple departments. I think there's room to figure that out better than we do it now. So your perceptions are correct.
Okay, so I'm going to try to say something to that as well. I'm Chuck Rogers. I'm the Director of Engineering Physics, and I'm in the Physics Department. And my impression is that there's actually quite a wide variety of different styles of involvement, of course. We have, for instance, institute faculty at LASP who are also associated with departments, and as far as teaching, service, and research, indistinguishable from any other faculty member on the campus, and as well it should be. And then we also have people who are employees of the institutes who function as research faculty and often are forbidden by federal law, basically, from teaching. The issues of how they are funded and how they're then allowed to participate really is something that's outside of our hands. And we have many of them who would love to teach, but actually have to negotiate very carefully to make sure that they don't cross some type of federal accounting law. If that was not in the way, we'd have quite a number of deeper involvements within the departments in the Institute. So that's a problem that's far outside of our control at this point, but it's a serious problem.
Cord, did you?
Broke it. Okay, that's right. I speak loudly. Okay, so I'm in LASP and I'm in ATOC.
Okay.
And I guess I would second what you're saying is that it seems to me, we have a big resource on this campus that I think probably is not taken advantage of enough at all, and that is we have a lot of soft money researchers who, a lot of them would like to teach. I mean, I guess you talked about a federal barrier. I think oftentimes it's a time and finances barrier. They're working on, their grants, and teaching a class is not a simple thing. It takes a lot of time, and they're not paid very much to do that if they do teach a class. So I think that that's a problem. But mostly, I think it's just, we have this big resource, and I think oftentimes the soft money people really are not well integrated into the departments. I haven't been able to actually put my finger on exactly why that is, because I never felt, when I was a soft money researcher, which I was before I became faculty, I never felt like departments were cutting me out of anything. There was always the opportunity. I think, though, it's just, it really maybe is more a matter of time and funding sources that you need to balance depending on the position that you're in.
That's a great point.
And when we say large resource, the research faculty is roughly equivalent to the size of the entire tenure line faculty.
I'd like to speak for the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences.
I didn't pick on you.
I have the opposite problem with this thing here. I'm associate director of that institute, and all the institutes have slightly different configurations. Series, which is about 40 years old, has evolved through a number of approaches. I think Series and the other institutes have become much more comfortably related to their departments now. There was a time when there was an antagonism between departments and institutes. There might be some points of antagonism on particular things, but by and large, I feel that we're much closer to our departments, better integrated in research, more respectful of each other than we were before. Series has about 300 to 400 soft money researchers, and taking care of them has been challenging because until the last 7-8 years, they, being on soft money, did not have a career ladder to climb, did not feel like there was an institutional commitment to recognizing their maturation in science and so forth. We've taken care of that in Series and on the campus, I think, by creating career tracks, promoting people, recognizing promotions with higher salary. The one thing we can't give these people, of course, is the financial security of a tenure track position. This is bothersome to them, which we can understand, but there's no real remedy that we can see to this problem. As long as we remain competitive and have close relationships with federal agencies, which we do with NOAA, for example, we have a lot of stability that's not inherent, for example, in a simple grant writing program. We need to be sure we continue to diversify. Our sources of support might be even more important than it has been in the past. Develop some more stable relationships with other agencies and make sure that we're not building too much of our foundation on one or two relationships. But I think the institutes have come into a status of comfort with the main campus that wasn't the case 20 years ago. And in that sense, the situation with institutes and the faculty at large, the university at large, I think is healthy now.
We're about out of time. Are there any other issues that anyone wants to get on the table, either our panel or members of the university community? Anything we didn't touch on you want, Jim?
I can't let this go completely. You mentioned graduate students, and I think that it's important that I make two comments. One is that graduate students may be physically housed in a research institute, which we think is a good thing because they have colleagues that are way outside their discipline. It gives them a much broader view in the peer-to-peer education that goes on. But they always have a departmental home that they have to go back to. So there's sort of like the faculty as well. There's two parts of their lives, and so they're always going to be in one part at some period of time. They may be in an institute, but they always have a departmental home. I also hope that in talking with students, you got the impression that they have a lot of opportunity in that structure, that it's a very wide open campus, and not just their institute and their department is open to them, but all institutes and all departments are open to them, and we have many students who cross those lines and take advantage of that, and those hopefully are some of our best students.
Thank you.
May I follow up on this? So for some departments, like particularly like physics, certainly there's a lot of opportunity for graduate students in these institutes. But how about department like math? May I maybe hear people a little bit?
Well, I'm Judy Packer from the math department. We don't overlap with the institutes here so much, but we're a member institution for the Mathematical Science Research Institute in Berkeley. So every summer we were able to send several of our grad students to special workshops and programs there. So they do interact with their peers, and we have some money to send them to special meetings and such. And of course, those who are interested in cross-disciplinary areas are free and take courses in physics or whatever if they wish to. So there are external opportunities that mathematicians take more advantage of.
I just wanted to say that I'm impressed by the number of people who are here today and the level of conversation, and what that tells me is that I see the administration fostering an open dialogue amongst administration and faculty, which I think is very positive. And the other thing, the sense that I have both from conversation here and with other people, is that faculty morale is very good. And I guess I want to make the public statement that that's my impression, and so if that impression is incorrect, we're here for a while longer, and you can corner one of us and let us know otherwise. But I think it speaks very positively of the leadership that you do have.
Well, we're out of time, so thank you all very much for joining us here today, and thanks very much to our visitors.